To have this program included in your learning record, you must watch it to the end.
The office generally knew of my liking for Gary, and on the night of the Christmas party in a large city hotel, it was a wonderful party and I was so happy. And then I was ready to go home and the general manager's wife came up to me and said, "People like you should be in prison." And it just hurt so much. It was like being stabbed in the back.
I became an ordained minister in 1980 and I was the minister of the Pitt Street Uniting Church in the city for 10 years. The church supported my ordination even when I openly came out about my sexuality. Having said that, I was attacked by the Conservatives in the church and some of them outside the church too, and I thought to myself that I ought to retire because I wanted to do more creative things.
I used to have to go home the back way on the push bike. I used to have to go way out of my way to go home because the boys from the state school, they'd be on the corner with a group of girls and they'd be screaming out, "There she goes, there you go, Queenie," and all that carry on. Yeah, so I suppose I was somewhat persecuted.
When we first worked at LA Girls, we used to have to go to work dressed in boys' clothes, but we could have our makeup and hair on. The police had a field day in arresting us, and the charge in those days was called offensive behaviour because you weren't allowed to dress on the street dressed as a woman, but there was no written law. So when I went to work one night, I got arrested. And I had to sleep in the jail overnight, and I was in front of the judge. I said, "What's the charge?" He said, "Offensive behaviour." And I said, "I didn't swear or anything." He said, "You're dressed as a woman." I said, "Well, you've got a wig and a robe on." And he laughed his head off and pulled the hammer down and said, "Case dismissed."
I'm Dorothy, I'm nearly 83, I'm a minister in the Uniting Church and I identify openly and strongly as a lesbian.
My name is Cliff. I am 74 years of age and I'm living in a nursing home and I identify as a gay male.
My name's Carlotta. I'm a transgender woman. I'm 74 years of age. I am a TV and stage entertainer and my sexual preferences is nobody's business.
My name is Alan. I'm 82 years of age. I live in an aged care facility and I am gay.
I first realised that I was gay when I was close to 50 years old. Many things diverted me from thinking about my sexuality in my life, so it took me quite a long time, and it's also the generation in which I was born. We didn't talk about things like that.
I first realised, I'd say when I was about 9 or 10, that I was more familiar and happy with playing with my mates who were boys, but I preferred not to tell anyone, just kept it to myself.
I went to a few gay parties in the early 60s where I met drag queens, and one drag queen was sitting there and she said to me, "You'd look good in a frock." And I thought, oh my God, you know, I didn't know that you could do that, even though something inside me was saying this. And I got into a frock and never looked back.
All Claude's friends who he worked with, they all knew, which meant they knew I was gay. We were having lunch one day and they asked me a question and I said, "Because," and then I stopped and they said, "Alan, go ahead, what were you going to say?" And I said, "Because we're lovers." And Thanks. It doesn't matter, we've always known. So that's when I came out, I think.
A lesbian is a woman who is physically and/or emotionally attracted to another woman. A gay man is a man who is physically and/or emotionally attracted to another man. Bisexual describes any person whose attractions are not limited to one gender. A transgender person is someone who believes their assigned gender at birth does not fit with their identity. An intersex person is born with physical characteristics that do not fit medical norms for male or female bodies.
1 in 10 people over the age of 65 would identify as LGBTI, and that is a fair number of people who are going to require aged care now and into the future. There are no statistics kept on the number of LGBTI people who may be receiving residential aged care at the moment, because it's just not a question that's asked, because it's seen as intrusive.
I never ever exposed my sexuality. And with my partner of all those years, we never ever discussed it.
Well, most people who go into residential aged care don't go there by choice. Most times it's because they do not have the community supports out there, such as biological family or a partner who may be able to look after them.
All of a sudden the doctors just said, we have discussed the situation and you need 24/7 care, so you will have to go into a nursing home. My independent life came to a very sort of sudden stop.
If the facilities don't accept you as a total human being because of your orientation, there is this fear that you're going to be looked on as something odd or different, that you're going to be gossiped about by staff, you're not going to be given the same rights and privileges as heterosexual people. If you look at the history of LGBTI people in this country, there has been a history of discrimination.
Older LGBTI Australians have lived most of their lives aware that disclosing their sexual orientation or transgender identity could lead to arrest and imprisonment. In 1949, Victoria downgrades the penalty for anal sex from death to 20 years jail. In 1969, New York police raid the Stonewall Inn, inciting violence and leading to the gay rights movement. In 1972, South Australian police throw a gay man into the Torrens River, where he drowns.
There was a time when I was badly bashed on the corner of Swanston Street and Collins Street in Melbourne by a group of thugs, and the police weren't particularly interested.
In 1976 and 77, Victorian police arrest over 100 men for homosexuality. In 1978, the first gay and lesbian Mardi Gras parade takes place in Sydney. Police clash with protesters and 53 people are arrested.
I knew the march was on and I knew there would be problems with the march. I would have been vocal and shouting, and therefore probably the police would have arrested me, so I never went ahead with it.
I didn't take part, but I had a very close friend who did. She was in it and she was arrested and had a really hard time.
The first gay march in Sydney, I was watching and got harassed by police in the streets because it broke out fights and things like that. It was terrible.
In 1982, the first case of HIV/AIDS is reported in Australia.
The AIDS thing came in. We went through all those years. We lost heaps of friends. I suffered in clubs because they thought if you touched one of us, you'd get AIDS.
In 1984, homosexuality is decriminalised in New South Wales.
There were people outside the church who were attacking me, and a particular group of people called National Action, who were neo-Nazis. Their leader would sit outside my house and stare at me for hours. Some of his group would then paint things like lesbian slut across my front fence. They threw vomit and faeces all over the front of my house. The last thing they did was to burn a life-size effigy of a woman on my front doorstep.
In 1992, the ban on homosexuals serving in the military is lifted. 1997, homosexuality is decriminalised in Tasmania. In 2004, the ACT allows same-sex couples to adopt. 2012, the Australian government makes it unlawful to discriminate against LGBTI people.
The national strategy was set up to make aged care residential facilities and aged care service providers responsible for the funding that they received from the Commonwealth, that they were inclusive and accepting of LGBTI people and that discrimination didn't occur. This was also taken into the aged care accreditation standards and is now part of what facilities are accredited against.
LGBTI inclusive training was funded and offered through the department, and Uniting, with its partnership with ACON, worked together to tailor the LGBTI cultural sensitivity training. As a result, we needed to ensure we had a key message that welcomed everybody to Uniting and assured them that they were going to receive inclusive and safe care. Our key message is welcoming you exactly as you are, and that message has resonated very well with the LGBTI communities.
At LifeView, we're delivering our care to every resident, irrespectively of their gender and sexual preferences. The policy was implemented 18 months ago, and it is across all our 4 homes in Victoria. We do provide trainings to all our staff, the ACON trainings, online trainings, face-to-face trainings on a yearly basis. And as a part of onboarding process, we do inform all our applicants at the interview that we are inclusive and diverse, and as a part of the process, the applicants have to accept to get in as a part of the team.
One of the challenges is identifying the needs of the transgender community, supporting the transgender client as they age, and responding to how the client with a dementia diagnosis who may come from the LGBTI communities is also been paramount to our recent strategy.
Elderly residents are not often prepared to disclose the information of their sexuality, and it makes it especially hard when the resident is gay or lesbian.
It is a personal choice if they choose to disclose, and we've developed systems and a policy and a process to ensure they're supported regardless.
I did not disclose my sexuality to the management, but I did disclose to my GP. You've got to find out how you're going to settle in. I felt that if I'd have said what I wanted to say, it could have led to unknown problems.
One person that I am aware of who did disclose to their roommate was actually attacked by their roommate physically, and they had to be separated because they were in a shared room. And this person disclosed that they were a gay male, and this 80-year-old man took to the other one with his walking stick. So it is there, so it's up to the staff to actually be aware of what discrimination and what dangers and vulnerabilities there are within their own facilities.
LGBTI people can potentially have a number of health issues that require specific knowledge and treatment once they enter aged care.
HIV-positive people are ageing differently and in some cases faster, but we are seeing, because of some of the earlier drugs that they were on, there's bone density issues, which of course cause fractures. There's high cholesterol, which can have an impact on cardiac health. Diabetes, early onset dementia in some cases. There is a higher rate of anal cancers in gay men, and they may need checking for that, or they may actually have been diagnosed and being treated. There has been a higher rate of smoking and still into older age among same-sex attracted women. There is a higher rate of undiagnosed breast cancer, undiagnosed cervical cancers. Intersex is very little known, but transgender people are probably the most discriminated group, because not all people who have transitioned have had full surgery, nor need they have. So we may have a person who externally presents as a female, but may well still have male genitalia. Or a person who presents as a male but may well have female genitalia.
Significantly, the transgender community, older person is dealing with the issues of hormones and how their body ages. It's important that we partner with our clients to support them in that process.
There is a higher rate in general in the LGBTI population of anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation. And that is not because people are LGBTI. It's because of their life experience and because of discrimination.
For many older LGBTI people, disclosure resulted in enforced cure treatments, loss of family, friends, even their livelihood.
I went through these series of treatments which were just archaic. They put wires on your head and made you look at dirty pictures or made you look at animals doing it together and all that. And I ripped it all off. I said, these people don't know what they're talking about.
These experiences have shaped their health, well-being and fears about aged care.
Gay conversion therapy consisted quite often within a church movement of pray the gay away. They were actually taking people into mental institutions, they were applying electrodes to their genitals and showing them stimulating photographs, and that was being done by the psychiatric communities as a cure within mental health facilities in this country and many other countries.
I would like to see that they've got well-trained people going into these places to look after lesbians, transsexuals and gays. I just think that it's very important that these people are knowledgeable of how we are cared for, that you can have your lovely surroundings around you, your memories and all that, but you must be looked after by well-trained people who are of understanding. We don't need people in there who are not friendly gay.
There are a number of things which would make an aged care home for me. To be able to put around me things that remind me of the love of my beautiful partner who died, photos of those that I love, and I found that when working with other people, caring for other people, that I like to have a little blessing, a little framed blessing alongside me that reminds me that I'm embraced by my God and my friends.
I don't know anything about other aged care facilities, but I think they have to be as broad-minded about it all as this establishment. I think it's great that they are supporting this in every way, and it makes it, we hope, if more gay guys come here, they will be accepted because their attitude is so great towards that. So I think it's a good thing that we are mentioned so much in newsletters they put out here, and they keep us informed in other ways. And that wouldn't have happened once.
The aged care strategy has 5 principles, which are inclusion, empowerment, access and equity, quality and capacity building.
Elderly residents and their families initially informed about our inclusiveness well before their admission, when they come for a tour to have a look at the facility, so they have enough time to make their decision if they're comfortable with our policies. When a new resident comes into the facility, they warmly met by the staff members, having a tour, showing the room, and they receive a welcome pack, and a very important document is your house in order to ensure that all their wishes are respected.
One of the most successful strategies that Uniting has implemented was to undertake LGBTI cultural sensitivity training with our staff. We worked with ACON to refine the training so they understood the experiences of the older LGBTI person, from the history of discrimination, legislation, financial and medical issues that they may have experienced. Staff needed to understand how to make people feel safe. It is paramount to an older person's current experience that we understand their past experience.
Now that I'm nearly 83, I do think of the future. I know for sure that the Uniting Church has in fact received awards because of their good care and open care of gay and lesbian people, and I certainly want to take advantage of that, partly because I am a Uniting Church minister. I want to go into a Uniting Church facility.
They also talk about how positive it is to see symbols that indicate LGBTI inclusiveness. The rainbow tick information that we put on our websites, the symbols that we put within our reception centres as well, and identifying that the community that lives within the services is diverse. So our forms have been tailored to address issues in relation to gender identity, sexual orientation and relationships as well. How somebody might answer the question of the pronoun and the name that they commonly like to be referred to as well. Those forms make a very powerful impact, because if we're not asking the right questions initially, we won't give them the confidence that we'll be able to care for them. The environment that we provide is also important to our inclusive care, including looking at our mixture of single rooms and shared rooms, and understanding the individual's needs in relation to privacy.
I would choose ones that I have had friends stay in, and they were openly lesbian usually, and their partners, if they had them, could come and cuddle with them, and they could own their sexuality, and found that the staff of those facilities treated them with respect, and that's what I want.
Uniting is a faith-based organisation. We attend Mardi Gras and other regional LGBTI-specific events to promote our inclusiveness. This year, Uniting walked for the third time in the Sydney Mardi Gras, and for the first time ever, we walked with 4 of our residents in our aged care services.
LifeView publishes its own quarterly newsletter, Pride Press, which has all the newest updates, links, and is available for all the staff and residents. A number of non-LGBTI residents and staff members attended the Pride March. We had over 80 people participating in this year. This was our second year of marching.
I think that with the national strategy and the changes that have come in with aged care and further changes which will come in, I think that the future for LGBTI people going into aged care is much more positive, but we have to be vigilant around training. It needs to be ongoing quality improvement, because we are here, we're strong, we are now empowered, and we will hold residential aged care facilities and other service providers accountable.
LGBTI people will be looking for signs, so be explicit in your facility's communication and provide the welcome they need and deserve at all points in the service journey. Articulate to all staff the vision and commitment to LGBTI inclusive practice. Support staff to understand LGBTI history, how it's influenced their visibility in helping the service meet their needs. Develop educational programs that are ongoing, that embed messages and keep lived LGBTI practice on the agenda. Provide safe opportunities for residents to participate in the conversation, whether their wish is for their sexual orientation to be known or not. Disclosure is not the aim of LGBTI inclusive practice in providing a safe and inclusive service. However, if someone discloses their sexual orientation or gender identity, clarify with them whom their disclosure is to be shared with. Create a welcoming environment through communicating commitment to LGBTI inclusion in as many ways as possible.
This establishment to me accepts you for what you are. I just feel a normal human being here. And there's never any suggestion or sly remarks made. So, you know, it's just home. Just like being home, and you feel perfectly normal.